The Cassard is one of the lake flies found in Mary Orvis Marbury's Favorite Flies in Their Histories, which is just a great book. The fly plates in that book were illustrations of actual fly frames that were part of the Columbian Exposition in 1893. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. It was an amazing World's Fair. Wind a thread base and then attach the gut underneath the hook. And I've staggered the ends of the gut. And as I wind the thread forward, I try to bring the gut up parallel with the hook. In other words, in the rear, it's going to be underneath the hook, but by the time it gets to the front, it's going to be level with the shank of the hook. This is real gut twisted, and I did that using, I did the twisting using my vise and vice grip pliers. The point of the hook should extend halfway in to the gut loop. This hook, by the way, is a 2-aught handmade from Gordo Chesney. You have to soak gut before you work with it, just so you know. Here I'm going to try to cut these off again in a staggered fashion, trying to get them the same length as the other set, which I failed to do, so I'll have to take some off the other set. Again, I'm trying to keep the staggered. And the reason for staggering is you just want to make less of a cliff there for later. Putting some crazy glue on here. You can use any kind of glue you want. You don't have to use crazy glue. CYA glue on a historic fly is, I'm sure, a no-no with some guys. I just like to really get this gut attached well in case I ever want to fish this fly. Who knows? If I was going to be more a purist, I'd just use maybe some head cement here rather than crazy glue. That'll be the last glue I use. This is GSP 200. Once again, far from traditional. If you wanted to be traditional, you might use... I don't know. If you wanted to be traditional, you'd be using silk thread. But you could use some cotton thread like Danville 6-aught, UTC 140. I wouldn't use UTC 70 only because I just hate that thread. That's just me. So I wouldn't use it. You can use it if you want. Anyway, GSP is fabulous for these flies. I've switched to it completely. And for building a body, it's wonderful. It flattens real well. So I've started building a body, and now that I've got some bulk, I'm going to switch to again GSP. In this case, 50 denier, not 200. And the reason I switched to 50 is it just works better to tie in materials. You can do it with 200, but it doesn't work as well as 50. So I switched to 50. Also, it if you spend a lot of time, you can get a smoother body with 50. Although you can get a smooth body with either one, really. Once I tried GSP for this and full dress salmon flies, I just switched to it. You can carry the traditional thing too far. You know, if you really wanted to be traditional, you'd be making your own hooks. When I tie in materials for tags and ribs, if I'm using GSP, I like to do 8 turns for the tie-in instead of my usual 5, because GSP tends to be a little bit slipperier, and I just don't like it when things pull out. I become very annoyed. And this is not like a wet fly tag. This particular tag just goes forward, and this is fine oval tinsel I'm wrapping here. And there's lots of arguments about how many turns, 3 to 5, somewhere in there. Backing off the thread, which I always do. I leave 1 turn so that the tag end of the tinsel doesn't pull out. And then bind it forward. Cut it off. And I do a lot of just wrapping of thread on this fly, and I will speed up all those segments. This gets a little boring. Wouldn't you love to have some stock heavy metal, or maybe some twangy fake bluegrass, or God forbid some EDM playing right about now? Well, me neither. I'd love to have some music playing during these segments, but there are so many pitfalls with that on YouTube that I decided just to let it go. I was a musician for a number of years and loved music and still love music. But on YouTube, you can literally hum a song and have your video taken down. This is me playing here. Let's see if they take me down. Who knows? It's a Chopin nocturne as part of an intro I did for a recent project I did with my brother. We'll see. I've married tails together, and I'm going to apply them here. I didn't show the marrying. I'll show the marrying of the splits, which is the exact same thing. Then the near tail is made up of left goose secondaries and left wood duck, and the far wing or the far tail is made up of rights. If you don't know what lefts and rights are, I'll link to Introduction to Married Wings below in the description. Trying to get it centered, and I always check it from the top and try to get it in line with the keel of the hook, or the barb and point of the hook. That I call it the keel. Just binding it down forward to, again, add some bulk. I'm cutting off at an angle there to help the taper, to fill in a section that I know Has a little sway back to it. You notice on this chenille, I've stripped off some of the chenille, so I'm just tying in the core of this chenille. This is some silk chenille that was provided to me by John McLean, feathersmc.com, and I'm sure I'll be plugging John a lot in these videos because he's a saving grace for anybody who does fancy flies. John has been fantastic for the entire full dress salmon fly community. Tying materials off underneath the hook is a good habit to get into. I do it on a lot of flies now. I just have tried to make it a habit. After securing the chenille with a couple of wraps, I'll take the scissors and strip out a little bit more core and tie that core down. And tying in just the core cuts down on the bulk. And I'm doing a lot of thread flattening. When I flatten thread, I'm spinning the bobbin counterclockwise. Now, what I mean by that, it's like unscrewing a light bulb is the best way to think about that. Imagine as you're twisting the bobbin that you're unscrewing a light bulb. Here I've stripped off the metal off of the silver oval tinsel. But when I tie it in, I'm not just tying in the core. I'm getting a couple of strands of the metal as well. If you don't do that, the metal can separate from the core later as you wind the rib. So just be aware of that. Always tie in a little bit of the metal, but strip it off to keep down the bulk. You can wind up with a lot of bulk at the tail end of these flies. And so as you proceed, you're constantly trying to deal with it. I was talking about the Columbian Exposition, which was a World's Fair held in Chicago in 1893. And it marked the 400th anniversary of Columbus discovering America, more or less. And honestly, I wish I could go back in time and go to this thing. I was reading about it today, and it was amazing for the day. They built a whole city. It might have been one of the best World's Fairs ever. I don't know. I went to the New York World's Fair in the 60s, and that was great. But this thing, the entire city that they built was white. There's even a reference to it in the song "America the Beautiful," talking about the alabaster cities. The Ferris wheel debuted there, and it was so huge the cars held 40 people each. I'll come back to this. Right now, what I'm doing is I'm making a couple of test winds. What I'm trying to do is locate the thread so that I can tie in the hackle. When you wind the hackle, it needs to start exactly just behind the second turn of ribbing and then follow the ribbing forward. So I'm trying to locate the thread at that spot where I can tie in the hackle. So I'm still a little too far forward with the thread here. I'm going to go back just a few more turns and I should have it. I used to measure the shank and divide by 5 and do all these crazy things. Well, then I hit on this scheme and it's just a lot easier. This is the Palmered Hackle I'm going to use, and it's got a lot of taper to it. It's almost a spade hackle. It is a cock hackle, not a hen hackle. And typically, cock hackle was used when palmering. Now, that's not to say that you can never use a hen hackle and that it's a rule of some kind. Tyers back then did whatever they had to do. If they were out of cock hackle or didn't have the right size or something, they might have used hen. But typically they did use cock hackle. And now I'm tying in a piece of, this is Japanese silk floss. It's a dark claret. Now I'm winding more or less edge to edge here. And I can do that because I don't need to overlap, because any little gaps I can make up on the way back. So it's not critical if I've got a little something, a little of the white underbody showing. Now I have to say, in Price Tannet's book, what he does is he ties in the hackle using the silk floss on the way back through. I've had trouble with that. When I've tried to do that, the hackle has seemingly invariably pulled out as I try to wind it, which is disastrous if that happens. I mean, it's really disastrous. You have to take everything all the way back to the butt and start over if the hackle pulls out. The hackle's the last thing to be wound here. So I prefer doing it this way, which is a very legit way to do it. A lot of tyers do it this way. But I just want to make you aware of doing it the other way, and you can do whatever you want to do. I trapped and cut off the butts. Now I've got a burnishing tool here. This is agate stone. Okay, the next thing to get wound here is the ribbing. And remember, it has to be wound. The second turn has to go right in front of the hackle. I don't know if the hackle moved here a little bit or what, but I'm going to take it back just a touch, trapping some of the stem there. Here I'm tying off on the side. I like to tie ribbing off on the side. Many times it'll work its way up to the top. Now here I make a tragic mistake. It doesn't come back to haunt me, but you should never do this. I've lost my mind here. You should not cut this ribbing at this point. What you want to do is wrap your hackle and then cut the ribbing. The reason for that is if the hackle should break, you can then take everything back and you'll still have your ribbing intact. You won't have to redo that. Now, if this hackle breaks here, I'm going to have to take the rib all the way I'm going to have to go back all the way to the butt. I'm going to have to take everything back, and the ribbing will be useless to me. And this is especially important on a more when you've got more complicated ribbing, like on a Jock Scott. As it turns out here, the hackle doesn't break, and I'm fine. I attribute that to clean living. Like to pull the butt forward and get several turns on there before cutting it off. I try to get some separation, so I'll have fewer stray pieces to deal with later. Was it at this point where I kind of thought, I'm really not having the best day here. And you need lots of confidence with these flies. And if you start to lose it at any point, lose confidence, things can just go south. And they do for me, as you'll see shortly here. And what you have to do is put one foot in front of the other and move forward. Sometimes you have to move backwards. Now I'm going to get ready to mount the wings, and there's a lot of prep work that goes into these. And the first thing I do is twist the stem counterclockwise on this near wing. This is a wood duck feather, and this is a right. You notice most of the barred section of this feather is on the right. So I'm considering it a right. And if you look in Mary Orvis Marbury's book, this is how she mounted her wood duck wing. This puts the non-barred sections down. Now this feather here is a left, and this one you need to twist the stem clockwise a lot. What that does is that enables you to mount these by the stem and have the feather cant inward at the top just a little bit. So you want the near and far feathers to cant inward. And here I finally got them mounted. But let me tell you, I did a lot of twisting, a lot of flattening of the stems. I probably spent 20 minutes trying different things to get these wings to sit right. And ultimately, I had to mount them with the stems crossed, which is not a good idea, but it worked. And I decided to go with it. The wings are sitting very well, and now it's time to put some splits on. And by this point in the fly, I was a little frustrated. The wings didn't go on smoothly as they have for me many times, and who knows why. I probably should have taken a break maybe 15 minutes ago. Who knows? But you can't let the stress of this get to you, and that's exactly what happens to me here. I'm using lefts here, left goose secondaries, to make up the near splits. I'm marrying them together, cutting off 3 or 4 strands. Ultimately, what I want is about 3 strands of each. When I tie these splits in, I like to go high on the shank. You notice here the yellow split just a little bit when I tied it. So I'm going to try again, go even higher. And that's still a little bit split there, but I don't think that's going to be a problem. I'm going with it. And now I'm dealing with rights. The right side of the feather when viewed from the top, or the front, however you want to look at it. And even though right now I'm cutting things from the back, from the left side, I'm working from the back, and that's why. There are some old stubs here I've got to get rid of. And now I'm to the good part of the feather. Try for 3 or 4. And that's going to be my bottom one on the far side of the hook. And now I'm going to use, again, a right. Working from the back of this feather, so it's on the left here, but it's still a right. When I put these slips together, I'm using almost no force whatsoever. It's more about positioning than it is trying to jam these feathers together. If you use rights, let's say, that have about the same or similar curvatures, they want to go together. For a wing on a bird to stay together, it has to naturally marry. So it's a very gentle process, marrying wings. Just stroke them very lightly. Never try to force the issue. Just let them go together. J. Edson Leonard has golden pheasant crest as part of these splits, and I just don't see it in the book, in Mary Orvis Marbury's book. Just not there. And that looks pretty good. It's ready to go on. Again, see how high I've got it here. And that one split just a little bit down at the green, but it's so low that it's not going to be a problem. I know it isn't. There's a cheek that will cover that, number one. Right there, I took my scissors and just remarried the yellow a little bit just to make sure that it would go before binding down things down. But I'm pretty confident about that. I think it'll go back together nicely. I'm tying in the left cheek now, which is a golden pheasant tippet. And I have spent a lot of time twisting, bending, and flattening the stem on this cheek to get it to lay flat at the tie-in point. And this is just a question of redoing it until it sits the way you want it to sit. There's a lot of dealing with stems and trying to get everything perfect, and you've got hackle in the way, and you just have to take your time. There's no panacea here. I've done a lot of this style fly, and every single time, it's like giving birth. It's a struggle. It's a fight to the finish. And this fly certainly is no exception. And this is a relatively easy fly, but some days things just go together, and some days they don't. It can be the materials, it can be you, there can be a lot of factors. And the number one attribute you have to tie the fancies is perseverance. That's the number one thing. You've got to be able to hang in there. And it helps to have a psychiatrist on staff. Fortunately, my daughter just got her PhD in psychology, so I've got that part of it licked. And here I'm finally going to finish this up. And right now is where I completely lose my mind. I got this far, put the Peacock herl head on, cut the thread, finished the fly. Well, of course, that was crazy because there's red hackle that has to go on first, then the Peacock herl. Well, I took it all the way back to, I not only got rid of the Peacock herl that I put on erroneously, I took it all the way back to before the cheeks and put a new set, the same cheeks on, but put them on again. At that point, things were going so well, I finished up the fly. Unfortunately, I forgot to hit record on the video, so there's no video of it. And I had been through so much at that point, I just left well enough alone. And sometimes you have to do that. So please accept my apology. I had just been through a little too much with this thing. And honestly, I liked what I had and just couldn't face doing it again.